I want to begin by asking you, Andrew K.P. Leung, the view in China of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's bilateral with the Chinese president on the sidelines of the SCO and the outcomes, the mention of Pahalgam terror. How is China viewing the outcomes?
Well, of course, Beijing views this as a very positive development. But this positive development is not so much that India and China are pulled together as they are pushed together by what President Trump is doing to disrupt and discard the rule-based order, which was founded by the United States after the Second World War. And of course, as far as the United States is concerned, President Trump is concerned, his attitude seems to be that America is still the most powerful country on earth. He can do, America can do what he likes and to bend the whole world to his will. I mean, he doesn't really care about in this partnership, as he doesn't care about European Union's partnership as well, in spite of the long-standing transatlantic relationship. And is imposing tariffs not only against China and Russia, perceived as Americans' existential threat, but also on allies like India and European Union. And in fact, this disruption of the whole world supply and value chain and the tariffs are also causing harm to a lot of countries around the world, especially in the Global South. Hence the rallying under the umbrella of the SCO to really recalibrate relationships and to move the world towards a more cooperative international environment.
Let me get a view from the United States of America. Bill Drexel, the warm hug between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin, the fact that President Putin apparently waited for Prime Minister Narendra Modi for 10 minutes. They had a 45-minute long discussion in the car, then another 45-minute long discussion with the group, and of course the bilateral with Chinese President Xi Jinping. How is America looking at a comprehensive strategic partner and these images that emerge from the other side of the world, sir?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we might have to make a distinction between how maybe DC and the strategic community generally are looking at this and how the administration's looking at this. There's no question that this sort of development is really a kind of a direct stick in the eye for what the Trump administration is trying to do with India vis-a-vis Russia. It's very direct. We're seeing, in a sense, escalating provocations about this issue back and forth. But if you widen the aperture to look beyond what this specific administration is doing, which is trying to make a play on global trade generally and also trying to bring a swift end to the war, India watchers across DC are very concerned about these developments. And I agree with the last colleague who spoke, which is that this it's not so much that they're pulling together as being pushed together. It's a relationship, a rapprochement of convenience more than of substance. If the United States and India cannot work out their differences, it's going to be an immense strategic disaster for both. Particularly as China still claims Arunachal Pradesh in its entirety. That's a state the size of Austria from India. So long term, the differences between China and India certainly are severe. So the question is, can we work this out in a timely fashion?
Let me take that question to General Raj Shukla before I bring in Professor Kondapalli and Dr. Tara Kartha. General Shukla, the optics of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's warm hug with the Russian President Vladimir Putin for either Indians or Russians, and I spoke to a number of Russian journalists, clearly no surprise to either countries, perhaps not even for China. But how would the West be viewing it? And this is a very clear signal that India intends to send out to President Trump and his team, isn't it? The optics were all too obvious. There was a message here for the White House.
So, since you asked me about the optics, let me try and connect the optics, the imagery, to geopolitical substance. So, my mind goes back to sometime in the 1980s, It was an article in one of India's leading dailies titled The Wallflower and the Dance of the Dinosaurs. And India was this wallflower who the two dinosaurs didn't even ask for a dance, neither USSR nor America. Today, what has changed is that everybody is wooing us. We have the luxury of choice. We have the choice to choose partners. And especially when you push us on these unreasonable assumptions. Let me just push one. I don't blame Mr. Trump. I blame those who are advising Mr. Trump. Pete Navarro, Jeffrey Sachs says, I don't know whether that's a fact or metaphorically, that he's the worst student of economics to come out of the economics department of Harvard. And Pete Navarro is advising him. See, hypothetically, if India were not to buy oil, China will buy it, Turkey will buy it, the revenues will continue to go to Russia. And if this whole business goes offline, it is so sensitive to demand and supply that the Russians will make more profits. So this business of targeting India to end the war is ridiculous. The war will be ended depending on the trajectory of combat along the front lines. And there America is guilty of vagaries in its policy, starving the Ukrainians of weapons at critical points. That's the reason why the war doesn't end. Today I was, to my utter surprise, I was watching CNN and France 24. All the Western platforms were talking less of Putin and Xi, talking more of Modi. So today India has the geostrategic heft to tilt the global balance towards the Atlantic Europe order or the Eurasian order. This is the new India, and I'm saying it with all humility. I still hope, and I agree entirely with the gentleman who spoke before me, India and the US must mend ways. It will be a disaster for both. But we can't do it single-handedly. Mr. Trump and his advisors must see reason. So, that's the point I wish to make, from the imagery and optics to geopolitical substance. India has
No, you're absolutely right, Dr. Tara Kartha. This disaster is not of India's making. India did not make this disaster. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was quick off the block, going to Russia, going to America, seeking a trade deal with President Trump. It's the American administration which, from what sources tell India today, everything was in order. The file was on Trump's table, and suddenly things turned around, and we don't know what turned it around, Dr. Tara Kartha. But these images, are they riling America even further? Or will they make America see sense? Will America double down, in your appreciation, put additional taxes on India? Or will America perhaps furiously backpedal, and it's still possible to salvage the situation, work out a trade agreement? Or then that'll be a massive loss of face for Donald Trump, and he'd rather destroy this relationship than his image of the strong man.
I think you're absolutely right. If you remember in February 2025, when the Modi visit, all that was going on, Apple was coming to India, and everything was hunky-dory. I mean, the relationships was on a huge, massive trajectory. And like you said, correctly, absolutely spot on. What brought this on? I mean, what was the reason? The fact that the Prime Minister didn't go on the Trump's, invitation. You can't invite the president, Prime Minister of a country and say, come and have dinner. We are not Asim Munirs. So there is a lot of difference here. But as of now, I think this thing has gone far enough. My sense is that there will slowly be a little bit of backpedaling here, because it's gone beyond control, and there are, in all fairness, there are people within the bureaucracy a lot of us have worked very hard for the Indo-US relationship for years. There are people on that side also who worked. They will definitely try to put this relationship back on the agenda. My fear is, Gaurav, is that this little thing of against India will start creating anti-India sentiments within the US overall. That is dangerous. So let's see where this goes. I mean, this particular image is going to rise.
And the apprehension is that could well happen. That could well happen if they go ahead with the H-1B visas. That will create trouble both in America and in India. But if they were to cut their nose to spite their face, we could go through a difficult phase. But Professor Kondapalli, the point that Bill Drexel raised, Arunachal Pradesh. I mean, that's an integral part of India. China considers it a part of Tibet and not just Arunachal Pradesh. So the palm being Tibet and 5 fingers from Arunachal Pradesh to Bhutan to Sikkim to Nepal to Ladakh. How do you see this pan out? Can India and China actually be friends, or we don't have to be friends? We just have to be honest trading partners. When you have security at the borders, there would be perhaps less messing around. Or can China still continue to use Pakistan to bleed us and still expect to access Indian markets?
One of the things that happened after Galwan in June 2020 is deterrence in place between India and China, and the Operation Sindoor deterrence on India-Pakistan front. So the issue of Arunachal Pradesh does not arise at this moment, even after the statements and the optics, etc. Because if you go back to 1960, Zhou Enlai was suggesting to a change in the name of McMahon Line to that of a People's Line. He was not questioning about the 90,000 square kilometers of territory, which we call as Arunachal Pradesh, to be given to China. So he was not mentioning anything of that sort. This happened in 2006 when the then Chinese ambassador Sun Yushi mentioned about the whole of the area that you call Arunachal Pradesh is a disputed area. So they shifted from south of McMahon Line to that of the entire Arunachal Pradesh. But that in itself does not really make India lose its sleep, because India has deterrence in place, and I don't think China has the capability to take away Arunachal Pradesh from India. The kind of mobilization, the kind of preparations that India made. So that is not on the discussion actually. So I think this is misleading about Arunachal Pradesh being brought into this context now. There were some problems related to Galwan and post-Galwan, which now this has been stabilized with deterrence in place.
Okay.
The fact that the Chinese president had made those comments yesterday indicated that there is now in place the deterrence capability.
Okay. Andrew KP Lung, is that also your appreciation that India and China now genuinely want to move forward on business ties? And do we see genuine cooperation, and especially in terms of India getting more access to Chinese markets? That's been a long-standing demand. That Wang Yi meeting with Ajit Doval, the principal, one of the main points was that it has strategic ramifications if the trade imbalance is more than $100 billion against India. So India needs more access for our pharmaceuticals, for our IT, for our agricultural products, and so many more things in the Chinese market. So do we see lack of opacity and more access, sir?
As I said, I mean, the border disputes have been long-standing, and it's a legacy, unfortunately, from history. And it's been poisoning the relationship between these countries for far too long. I don't think that these disputes are likely to be resolved by asking one side to give up their claims over the other, and both are core interests. And I think that both leaders have agreed to de-escalate long before this Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, with a view to paving the way to a more less confrontational and more cooperative relationship. As you rightly pointed out, there are huge opportunities for trade, and China definitely welcomes more trade with India, agricultural products, technology, and also even, of course, people-to-people exchanges, or even Indian cuisine, for example. But I think that both sides are looking beyond this mountain of differences, or it's just the differences are so deep and huge, just like the Himalayas. Now, I think that to say that, oh, because the Himalayas there, two countries would be enemies forever, I think it's nonsense, because nowadays you can work around the problem to looking for areas for cooperation. particularly when the whole world order is totally in disarray. And I think that countries like India and China are key players in the Global South.
So, though my question was beyond the boundary issue, and I believe, General Shukla, before I bring in Mr. Drexel, General Shukla, the fact that now you have troops amassed, the fact that even China has seen India's actions during Operation Sindoor, our military deployment, and we are strengthening it even further all along our posture. So militarily, we are able to defend our borders. Is this now an opportunity to seize and move forward, seeking more access to Chinese markets? And should we get access to Chinese markets, that's an indication that this is a new beginning, or it's a false start?
It's an absolutely new beginning, provided our force and diplomacy walk in step. So what do I mean with that? If you want peace with China, you need to do three things: deterrence, deterrence, and deterrence. For every 100 flights you increase to Beijing and Shanghai, increase your defense budget by 0.1 or 0.001. I will leave those figures to Dr. Kartha or Professor Kondapalli. But for each time you open your economy, increase your deterrence. That is the central lesson. And there is one more point I wish to make here, which is that, see, for the first time in history, the world's number 1 and number 3 economies are growing in close proximity without the Himalayas, without a strategic buffer of Tibet. The only way to ensure that the geostrategic clash is peaceful is through deterrence, not trust, but deterrence. Or let me say trust and deterrence. If we can invest in deterrence, you will have 2 tigers on either slopes of the Himalayas, or you will have 1 tiger on a hill. So that's the choice that we need to make. And if I may just add, Vasudev Kutumbakam is a wonderful idea, but as I keep saying, let's not forget what Swami Vivekananda told us, which is that the world is a gymnasium where nations come to make themselves strong. So if we respect power and we invest in power, diplomacy, trade, investments, all that can flow.
Okay. Bill Drexel, do we see some kind of back-channel negotiations with the United States of America? Because India is always poised for negotiations. Indian teams are always on standby. However, the change in attitude was from the United States of America. How do you see things move from this point? More acrimony, more heated words, the widening of the gap, or will an attempt be made to bridge this divide?
I think both are very possible. We see in this administration a willingness to really take big swings, make big reversals, and move very quickly in seemingly opposing directions. So the window of opportunity, the window of risk, both are very wide. We could see dramatic overtures to patch things up. We could also see, as seems more likely at the present moment, further escalation. I think the key is to not get too fixated on any one possibility or any one trajectory, because this administration is very effective at swerving really unexpectedly. But I just also want to revisit this issue with the long-term prospects for China. It's true that Arunachal Pradesh is not an active issue, but I raise it just to say that Galwan is just the tip of the iceberg. China owns Pakistan. China gave active military intelligence support to it during Operation Sindoor. Just this year, it proposed renaming several places in Arunachal Pradesh, as if to say, this is still ours. The Dalai Lama will pass soon. This is going to be a major flashpoint. The list goes on. So I don't think we can see anything. We should really be skeptical of claims that there's anything really sustainable.
No, but just view it from the Indian perspective. So we have China that's doing everything that you list out. We have Donald Trump, who's calling Asim Munir, who's seen as a principal, radical Islamist general in Pakistan, seen as one of the perpetrators of the Pahalgam terror attack. He invites him to White House. And, so China, we expect China may do something like this. US is supposed to be a close, comprehensive, strategic partner. So, I mean, look at it from the Indian perspective. Who do we deal with? A China that stabs us in the back or the US that stabs us in the back? Professor Kondapalli, it's equally painful for India on either side. And the impression is neither China nor America would want to see India's rise. We will now have to fight it out to rise despite them.
Yes, indeed. I think, but we need to make a distinction. United States does not covet any Indian territory. United States clarified in 1962 that the NIFA areas, Northeast Frontier Agency, that Arunachal Pradesh used to be called at the time, belongs to that of India. So there is the State Department clarification in 1962.
Okay, sir, give me 30 seconds. We're just reworking your audio link in just a moment. But Dr. Tara Kartha, let me take that question to you. America gave F-16s to Pakistan. America upgraded the F-16s for Pakistan. Yes, very close proximity India has with America. The Chinook helicopters, the C-17 Globemasters, the M777 light howitzers, they're all great weapon systems, platforms, aviation platforms. In the G404 engines, the supplies are still stranded. Our LCA project is held up since the 1980s, because of the post-Pokhran test. You know the entire history. And that G404 engines remain a nightmare even today. But I want to understand from you, America says beware China. China says beware America. In how does India deal with both countries, both very powerful countries, number one, number two economies? We need their assistance or help to grow, but then they're also trying to stop our rise in certain ways.
It's a, like I said yesterday, this is a very complicated chessboard. But I would sort of go with what Srikanth was saying, that at least the US doesn't want any of our territory. That's one. Number two, on the other side of it is the fact that US has always been an unreliable partner in defense. I'm sorry to say that. They've never ever been able to give us our stuff when we needed. We had to look elsewhere. Israel, Russia. Russia was there for us when we needed them. But the fact remains that your comfort level with the US is much higher in terms of how we've dealt with in the last 5 to 6 years. We've had a series of those agreements which made, Gaurav, the point is operationally now you're working together. That is on the ground. It exists. Now, you can walk back. It just requires another couple of months for this, and everything will fall straight onto the ground, and that's the end. And it will take another 5 years to bring it back. And like you said correctly, the main problem is we don't know why he's doing this. The point, the 25% tariff, I
Yes.
still, okay. But the extra 25% which deals with Russia, well, I mean, I'm struggling to make any sense of that. So if you can't get Europe to stop the war, Europe started this. They expanded NATO when they were told a million times not to.
Yes.
By us, all of us said, don't do this. They did it. The war started. And now they're saying, you stop the war. I mean, it doesn't. It defies common sense. But like I said yesterday, all this has to be handled together. It is not one or the other. You cannot say China or US or SCO or someone. All of this is being handled. And I think the MEA is doing a brilliant job. Like, for example, in Japan, you're playing all these pieces together. At the moment, it's good. But let's see how it goes.
Okay. Okay, General Shukla, if, when it comes to intelligence sharing, and I'm told during the Dolam incident of 2017 that China calls Doklam, during that Dolam incident, intelligence sharing, intelligence cooperation with the United States was extremely good. That 2022 situation in Tawang, again, intelligence sharing between India and the United States was extremely good. The satellite intelligence, the cooperation that we've had, that's been good. But when it comes to military hardware, C-17 Globemasters, great transport aircraft, the Chinook helicopters, excellent, the Apaches, we're also building Prachands on our own now. But But do we need the Striker vehicles? Do we trust them with the GE-404 engines? Do we need more military hardware? Clearly, I think the decision from what sources say, we are not even considering the F-35s just as yet because we haven't even tried and tested it. But how reliable would you see America when it comes to being a defense partner in terms of critical military technology?
Unfortunately, Gaurav, extremely unreliable. But having said that, recent conflicts tell us that more than combat platforms, what matters really, the clinchers are the wraparound technologies. Cyber, which neutralizes adversary command and control, EW, which neutralizes radars, AI. I mean, there's no time to talk of AI. AI is going to be transformative. DeepSeek is there in the Western Theater Command. So what really worries me is this, and this is an answer to your question. If you see the nature of the evolving security architecture, Israeli air power would not have delivered without all that the Americans gave them, from the Arrow to the Iron Dome to all that space kind of stuff. Pakistan gets all this Baidu and all this kind of stuff on a platter. Now, strategic autonomy, which is a prized foreign policy objective, makes a lot of sense. But does it mean that we go friendless? And that is the real challenge before us. Who is our technology partner?
Okay.
And in that sense, America was the big hope, not so much the platforms, but trust, Indus X, what Dr. Kartha was referring to. That is what was supposed to give these technology partnerships. And now with this tariff deal, that has become the challenge. So we really need to calibrate our strategic autonomy, our technological sovereignty or partnerships, and our operational poise. I think that is the central challenge before Indian
statecraft. And Dr. Tara Kartha, the last 30 seconds I have on this part of the show, how would you assess Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan, to China, his interactions with President Xi Jinping and interactions with President Putin?
I'd say he played, that was a lot of balls in the air, and he played it very well. Japan was your ace in the hole before you went to China. When you went to China, you were walking around with Putin. Putin is still, Russia is still the country which gives you technology. That is still with you. You've given that indication because we continue to buy Russian oil and we said we're going to buy it as much as we like. So the hell with it. That was appreciated in turn within Chinese public, which you must have seen. The Chinese internet is talking of, the fact that India stood up to the US and said, sorry, we are not bowing down. That's what marks the emergence of a great power, of a powerful country. It's not just, your all the stuff you have, it's how you posture it. All the same, the statement says none of this is against any third country. That's what the statement says. So it's again, I'm saying it, the US relationship is still wide open for us. Russia is there for our technology. So we're keeping all those options open, and that is precisely, we are doing it at our pace and at a time of our choosing. And I think that's fantastic.
The strategic autonomy, the swagger with which Prime Minister Narendra Modi walked the red carpet, because this was a Prime Minister who'd also carried out Operation Sindoor and had slammed Pakistan. 11 air bases, 6 radar stations, including the Honky 16 and the Honky 9 radars, the PL-15s, the JF-17s, the J-10Cs. Whatever had been pitted against India, on the 10th of May, India was standing tall, and India continues to stand tall. I mean, I wanted to leave you with that image of Pakistan's Prime Minister lurking in one corner, standing in one corner as the Prime Minister of India and the President of Russia. They walked in front without looking left or right, but that's what powerful leaders do. That's what powerful countries do. It's a chakra view. Some layers have been crossed. There are other layers to cross.